which will form the thrust of our issue of the day, as well as From the Pages, which is our newspaper review program that will come on much later. As always, I'd like to remind you that you can go a step further in your participation by commenting on our social media channels or even making use of them. We have Facebook where we're live streaming, Splash FM 106.7. So you can watch and listen if you prefer. And you can also drop a comment in the comment section there. We also have Twitter at Splash FM 1067. Don't forget the hashtag that we use on Twitter, which is hashtag Panorama. We also have WhatsApp for your convenience. WhatsApp is 0817 555 1067. Now that you know all there is to know, let's get into it.
That's what it is, and getting into it we will.
All right, we told you we'd begin with our issue of the day, so let's do that. A concept exists that all citizens and institutions within a country, state, or community are accountable to the same set of laws. Think about the rule of law. It is a concept that describes the supreme authority of the law over governmental action and individuals' behavior. Cases get instituted by bodies or individuals against body or individuals alike, be it government or private, and judgments ensue. In recent days in Nigeria, it has been about individuals who have defected from one political party to another and still occupy the office they were elected to.
First off, think Dave UMAHI, the now embattled governor of Ebonyi State. Some refer to him now as former governor on the premise of the judgment that sacked him from office. Tuesday, the 8th of March might seem like another day, but it proved otherwise for Dave UMAHI. Justice Ian Eko of the Federal High Court in Abuja ordered that Mr. UMAHI and his deputy Kelechi Igwe vacate office for defecting from the People's Democratic Party (PDP), on whose platform they were elected in 2019 to the All Progressives Congress (APC). But Mr. UMAHI insisted that he remains the governor. He also said he would not obey Mr. Eko's verdict as he had obtained judgments of other courts validating his defection. He and his deputy thereafter filed their appeal against the judgment, a move INEC says it is still reviewing.
The most recent of verdicts that border on defections came in just 2 days ago. In a suit filed by the PDP with the number FHC ABJCS 975-2021, 20 lawmakers who defected from its camp to that of the APC were sacked. For the sake of context, these examples are not the first of suits instituted to sack elected officials on the grounds of defection. Perhaps as expected, the lawmakers have filed an appeal.
Questions then begin to surface. Is there a provision in the constitution of the nation that actually gives room for elected officials to be sacked on the grounds of defection? Some see this as another point in their stand that the judiciary has been compromised. To help us make a sense of all of these and more, we have Barrister KAYODE Aderemi as we discuss the sacking of elected officials on the grounds of defection by the courts. Have to use this. Let's put a microphone, Barrister Aderemi. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you.
Thank you, Benga. Thank you, Lola.
Okay, we'll get started this way. Let's listen to the reaction of the former governor of Ebonyi State now, because I tried to check it up online, and what Google is bringing out is former governor of Ebonyi State. I mean, some will still refer to him like he also refers to himself as the governor of Ebonyi State. So we'll listen to his reaction following that judgment by Justice Ian Eko.
In the first place, there is no constitutional provision for any hatchet man to remove a governor. There are three ways whereby a governor can vacate his seat. It's either by death, resignation, or impeachment by the House of Assembly. There is no any other constitutional provision that empowers a hatchet man to turn the Constitution and the law upside down. I've listened to the judgment of ECO, and it's very obvious that he was on a mission. He was making all efforts to upturn the rulings of the Supreme Court and appeal courts on issues like this. We have had the rumors before now that he was determined to give judgment against all known laws and the Constitution, first to embarrass APC, two, to embarrass the federal government. For me, I do not feel worried, but I feel so sorry for the judiciary. The executives may have problems, the legislature may have problems, but the moment justice could be purchased, then we are in trouble in this country. And the ruling is a clear evidence that this country is in trouble.
And just listen to Mr. UMAHI when he reacted to that verdict by Justice Inyang Eko. And Barrister Aderemi, I mean, if you listen to the audio very, very well, he talked about how there are just 3 grounds on which a governor can be removed from office. Is he, in essence, very right with those assertions of his?
Well, he was speaking as one, a governor, and 2, as a person that has just been removed by a court. So you should not expect something too different, from what he has said. And of course, you could sense the bitterness in his submissions. For example, calling a judge a hatchet man, although he has later come to apologize to the NBA, because the NBA issued a warning to him to retract that. But even after his apology, after his office, I'm of the opinion that he should be cited for contempt of court.
Okay.
Because if a commoner were to say half of what he said, I'm very sure that by now the person will be in prison. So for him to have said that, it's marks of everything called decency, decorum, and integrity. So back to your question, is that what the law says? That's a question that would take me citing at least 5 different laws, and I believe as this program goes on, we'll look into that.
Okay.
It could be here, it could be there. We'll look into that as time goes on.
Okay. But what is the status of the governor or former governor, whoever you want to listen to, according to the law? Now that that ruling has been given, he's filed for an appeal. I believe he tried to stay it first by, filing at another court, but now he's withdrawn that and has filed an appeal. So what is his status now? And pending the hearing of the appeal, what happens? Who is the governor of Ebonyi State right now?
Okay, so the way the judiciary works or the legal system works is that once a stay of wait, there's something we call, let me run through from the beginning. After a case is concluded at the trial court level, or the court of first instance, judgment is delivered. After the review of judgment, there's what we call stay of execution. What that simply means is that let parties not do anything until we are done on appeal. That's what it means. And, smartly, a lawyer, oftentimes, we, often include a particular phrase in our prayers when filing for stay of execution. And it is something like, parties should maintain status quo ante. What that means is that the situation that things were before parties even went to court, let everybody maintain that. And the practice is that until an appeal is determined, until the stay is determined, then parties must not do anything.
Okay.
So even if INEC brings someone over, because of the stay that have been filed and the appeal has been there, nothing can happen.
But they withdrew the stay.
Because I'm not aware of that.
They've
Actually.
appealed.
Yeah, they did withdraw the stay.
They've
They appealed
appealed
initially and then withdrew the stay after, filed a stay. Then the court struck out.
No, they withdrew it. I
they
think
did?
it's because they filed an appeal. So maybe that rendered the stay redundant.
The law is that, although that's a little bit technical, and that starts with the problem I have with political laced cases. If you want to see conflicting judgments, one of the things that give we lawyers problem the most in Nigeria is politics and cases that do with politics. If you want to see very, very conflicting judgments, just check up, do your research around politics. For example, Amechi and INEC, the court stated, I think it's 2003 or thereabout, that when vote is cast, the vote cast belongs to the party, not a candidate. That was why Amechi was brought in. Fast forward about a decade after or thereabout, we had Ngigi versus Akunyili. There, the same court reversed itself, saying that when vote is cast, the cast vote belongs to the candidate and not the party. So you see a lot of more like a ping pong, here and there. But for other cases like contract, land matters, you don't see that. That's why you can imagine what a governor is saying, for example, about the judiciary. It's like saying, for example, that the head of judiciary in the state is the chief judge, right?
All right.
So to have said that about judiciary, imagine someone coming to say, by the way, remember, in Nigeria here, I heard, whether it's true or not, I do not know, that a particular person was arrested because he named his dog Buhari.
Right.
That's an affront, like they said, on the presidency. That's the executive. The president is the head of the executive at the federal level. The governor, the head of the executive at the state level. In the same vein, the CJN, Chief Justice of Nigeria, is the head of the judiciary at the federal level, and various chief justices of various states are the heads of judiciary at the state level. So to have said that, it's like, look at Showore as well. Look at Showore. One of the charges that was filed against Showore is that he was insulting the president. Think about that. So what has been done? What can be done? What will be done about David UMAHI that said that about the judiciary? So it's unfortunate that it appears that when things go wrong from the angle of the judiciary, they are treated with kid's glove. I know this as a fact. That's what happens. Similar to what happens even in Ogun State. The list is just endless like that. So, but if it happens to every other person, we hear heavens will fall and all that, heads will roll. So back to your question, in law, appeal does not operate as stay.
Okay.
In fact, a law school student will know this. For the fact that I've appealed against Lola's judgment, saying that this pen belongs to Lola. Lola took me to court, and court said, this pen here belongs to Lola, right? If I appealed that judgment, Lola will still have that pen.
Okay.
So in this case, as David UMAHI has appealed, you should vacate, except there's a stay. From the word stay, we know the meaning stay of execution. That means parties should not do anything until this is determined. The law is even very clear on that. But when it comes to politics, you can imagine him talking in a very cocky way, extremely cocky way like that, So, of course, he must have believed that he had the state apparatus, under his command or control. So, I have seen a video before, Binga and Lala, where a governor was in a place and a speaker of House of Assembly of a state and the CG of a state. These three guys are the heads in their respective ranks.
That's right.
One heads the executive, one heads the judiciary, and one heads the legislature. I watched with keen interest. I knew what was going to happen anyway. I was going to see who was going to bowing. Bow means respect in Nigeria. One from the other. I was watching. And the speaker, while referring to, the governor in Yoruba, he said, Oga. And the CJ, when he was about to greet the governor, bowed as well. And the governor just did like this. The way Pope waves his hand. So eventually, the governor was sitting down. These two other people were standing. Now, that typifies a clear example of needless overlap. All right. So, and of course, because of the financial chest that the governor has, who signs that paycheck is the governor. All right. So, the powers of the governor are just extremely enormous. Another example is, you can go through some cases, may take 10 years if it's high-profile case. For example, case of Benga Daniel, I think it's the 12th year. The case is still in court, Benga. Wait, not court of appeal. The case is still in the trial court.
Wow.
In Ogun State. After 2 years. All right. So, imagine all those things. You go to appeal, maybe another 3-4 years. You go to Supreme Court. If it's a murder case, for example, and the trial court sentences that person to death by hanging, person appeals. Court of Appeal affirms that. The person appeals again. Supreme Court affirms that. After all those things, the procedure is that until the governor signs the death warrant, the person can be killed. So I ask myself, of course, I've been to the Court of Appeal countless times. Okay, maybe not countless, but many times. At least 3 justices sit there. And at least 5 sit in the Supreme Court. So why would one person at the High Court, 3 making 4 at the Court of Appeal, and 5 at least making 4 plus 5 is 9, a Supreme Court, determine that this person is a murderer, and you wait for one guy, a governor, to sign, to approve whether I should be jailed or not. Why waste resources? Remember, these judges are paid. You know, some of these cases, if you go to the Supreme Court, takes about 9-10 years. So, my submission is simple about that. If you arrest somebody for armed robbery, drive him straight to Kimoso. Governor, should we kill him or not? That's going to save a lot. It sounds funny, and it may sound remote. Well, think about it now. When was the last time you heard, for example, somebody was hanged in Ogun State? I'm sure it's been over 2 decades, over 20 years. Meanwhile, every other month, somebody is convicted for murder and for other capital offenses. Armed robbery, for example, is then sentenced. All right? Murder is then sentenced. And some other cases like that too, really. But we don't see that happening. Remember again that taxpayers' money, you and I, when you make a call with any of your telcos, there's VAT on it. This money goes to the government. These are the monies used to feed them in that place they keep there, to pay salaries of those, you know, prison warders and the like. So think about, things are just so thwarted, really. So that David Umahi appealed should not operate as state.
All right. Well, I'll read a section of that news story so that we can get some clarity about it. Well, according to this, Justice Inyang Ekwas did indeed strike out the motion that sought for a stay of execution by Governor of Ebonyi State, David Umahi, and his deputy, Eric Kelechi Igwe. But the lawyer to the state government, as well as the elder brother to the governor, Roy Nwaizi, explained why Umahi's motion was struck out by the court. He noted that the position of things was simply that the records of the appeals filed by the governor and his deputy and the House of Assembly members had been transmitted to the Court of Appeal, Abuja, and the appeals had been duly entered in that court as appeal numbers 274 and 275. So it does sound as though, you know, they are substituting the stay for the appeal. But let's come back to the question that underlies all of these developments, either in Ebonyi or in Cross River. And you've alluded to this as well when you mentioned 2 conflicting court judgments. Who do the votes belong to? The party or the individual? I mean, I know the law is open to interpretation, and I'm sure it must be more confusing now that, as you said, there are 2 precedents where different rulings on this matter. But what is your interpretation as a lawyer of the votes cast during election? Who does it belong to, the party or the individual?
All right, I will answer in 2 ways. I will answer in 2 ways. One, I will say what the law states. And respectfully, of course, as a lawyer, I'm entitled to critique judgments. All right.
Right.
Provided I do not, like David Umahi said, referring to a judge, Ekbo, as if he's his baby. You know, he could not even manage to add justice there. You know, but anyway, that for me, that's not a bygone. That should be treated. All right. So the law is that. By the way, when you talk about law, we have sources of law in Nigeria that talks about it. We have SOGA. SOGA is like a statute of general application. Laws received from Britain were colonized by Britain, all right? We have customs. Customs are there too. Customs are kind of law. We have a lot of them. One of them, textbooks also are inclusive. At times, the judges would look into textbooks to determine what should be. We also have judicial precedents, and I will stop there. I will take a pause with that. What that means is that what the courts have said are laws. Okay, for example, the court said Amechi should be the governor at this time, even though he was not the one that was on the ballot. He became the governor. That became a law, right? So what a judge says, or what a court, not judge, even though it's the judge that sits in the court. But what the court says is the law. So in Amechi's time, the law was that, remember your question is who owns votes?
Right.
In Amechi's time, the courts said parties owned votes. All right, fast forward again to when we had Ngigiana Quinley. That was, I think, 2012. 2012. The court reversed itself and said votes belong to candidates and not parties.
Despite judicial precedents.
Now, there's something we call binding and persuasive authority, right? Benga is, for example, my friend, I don't know his name. Let's say this is Mr. X, is magistrate court, right? Benga is high court. Lola is court of appeal. That's in the order of hierarchy.
Right.
And KAYODE Aderemi is the Supreme Court. So if Mr. X delivers a judgment. That judgment cannot be binding on Benga.
Because it's higher.
Benga is higher. Rather, or on the other way around, or in the other way around, Benga's judgment or reasoning, we call it ratio, will be binding on Mr. X.
Okay.
Same thing goes up like that. It never comes down. We call it stare decisis. All right. So once a court of higher, KEDA, delivers a judgment or gives a ruling, it binds the court. So a lawyer that knows his onions will not bother. I will not be in the court of appeal, for example, with Lola and the citing judgment of Benga. It will be an insult, in fact. All right. Because Benga is a lower court, high court. Lola is a higher court. And I will not be in the Supreme Court and be citing Lola. All right. That's the way it works. So, however, there's something called judgment per inquiry. What it means is that judgment was given wrongly. So, what the court was, Supreme Court, the same Supreme Court said during Amechi's time, party belongs. Vote belongs to the party. During Akunle's time, they said vote belongs to candidate. But they say a court can overrule itself. That's what they're saying. A court can say, okay, now I've looked at it, in a deeper way. I have considered things I didn't consider before. And now I think this is what it should be. That was the case. Let's go to what we call ratio. For a judgment, we have two things, basically. We have, what we call ratio decidendi and obiter. Obiter is what judges say by the way. But ratio is the reason for the judgment. All right? Reason for the judgment, now, I've told you what the law is. The law, the last in time prevails. The last in time was, I think, Ingigi and Akunyele, 2012. So then the judgment was that votes belong to who now?
The
candidates. Individuals, candidates. Now, the ratio, that's the reason for judgment, is now that political parties are like boss or a container that contains candidates or individuals to election. So after the election, after victory, the person inside the box can decide to do what he wants, whether he wants to leave the box or something. Well, that's the law, like I've told you. That's the law, really, because that's Supreme Court. Other courts will, must follow. But for me, that same reason the court gave is why that should not be. Yes.
How do you mean?
Take for it. Let's look at it literally. I put Lola in my car. I drove Lola to an eatery. Right? Lola, at all points, at all material times, remains in my car. If I park my car in front of the eatery X, if Lola alights, gets down and walks away, the car remains there, right? That's what we call vacant position. That's why you ask the court to declare that his seat is what? Vacant. That's the meaning. But once Lola sits in the car and I move my car to eatery Y now, leaving X, there is nothing there to see anymore. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. That's one. Two, judges by virtue of their positions and their offices do not contest. I don't mean to, without being immodest, I have contested in Nigeria before general elections. In 2019, many of you know this. So I know some things that some judges may not know with regards election and electioneering. For example, when I was campaigning, I would drive to some rural places, remote places, and they would ask me, I mean, what is the logo of your party? They never bothered about my name. Yeah? That's why everybody campaigning that knows what he's doing should go with the logo of his party. Not, I had a logo as KAYODE Aderemi. It was DL, the law. Nobody cared about that. One. Two, or maybe three. I've given an example of putting Lola in my car. I've given an example of logos and what I saw on the field myself. Three is this. On election day, Benga, you should know. What do you see on the ballot? Is it my face?
No.
Do you see Tinubu's face or Buhari or Atiku? No. What do you see? You see the logo of what? Parties and the name of parties. You never see the name of any individual. Why all these things? Fast forward, that's number 4. Number 5, section 221 of the Constitution of Nigeria 1999 says that only a political party can canvass for 1 and 2 can donate funds for the purpose of election. Look at all these things. So all this make it clear that once the political party is not there, then the person is not there. Number 6, on that. This will be my grounds. Remember one Audu? I think he was from Kogi or something.
Yeah.
Right.
When the moment they declared him winner, he slumped and died. Now, what happened? The party, which is the boss that conveyed him, conducted another elections, by-elections, to bring another person in. Why didn't INEC say that parties, all of you, come together again because candidate has died? That still remains the law, by the way. So when a party dies or loses his mind, insanity, or by health or anything, what the law says is that the party should conduct an in-house with all the by-elections and bring somebody to substitute, in short. That's what the law says. So if indeed vote, now Benga, think about this, Alola. If indeed vote belongs to candidates and individuals, the law ought to be that since Audu died, his younger brother should take over.
All right.
It should be family business because the vote belongs to him as a person. But because votes do not belong to persons, political parties are the ones that will run these things. I don't know how you get these things. I will stop on about this, like I said. So for these reasons, I think strong and I believe strongly that parties ought to own the votes.
Well, speaking of your last or penultimate point, that was actually one of the key amendments in the newly signed Electoral Act that allows that in a situation where a candidate that contests the election, but before the announcement of results dies, the party is allowed to conduct another primary to substitute the candidate, and INEC gets 21 days to conclude the election and declare the winner.
It's clear. It's clear. So how can you, push or jettison all these things? Are six strong. You can't fault these 6 strong points. You can't fault them, really. Think about Ogun State, for example. It was not only APC and PDP that won elections, State of Assembly.
Right.
But after they were sworn in, they started defecting one after the other. As we speak now,
All 26 of them.
all of them, So why don't, if parties are not the owner of votes, why didn't they defect to less known parties? Why did they defect to Alliance for Democracy? Why not ANN? Why not Alliance for Action Alliance? Why not why not other ones? Why do they keep defecting to so-called big parties? Why? The reason is clear and it's obvious, really. It means parties win elections.
We also need to take it, from the audio clip that you listened to earlier when Dave UMAHI was speaking. Did he sound like, he referenced how he feels there is a personal vendetta or a personal agenda to get him out of office? As a matter of fact, I think I've overheard he accusing Governor Wike of Rivers State of sponsoring the process of he getting removed and all of that. Does it exactly feel that way, that there's a personal agenda against him?
Section 123, Evidence Act, says whoever asserts, he who asserts must prove. Anybody can say anything. I can say Benga stole my 10 million. You're about to say you were Falenu now. All right? And talk is cheap, like they say. Did he give any particular whatsoever, any slight, the slightest particulars as to substantiate that? Did you hear of anything like that? Or free now, anybody can say anything. I can say as well that it's because he has bribed somebody or he has bribed the IG that made him say that kind of statement without being afraid of the consequences. I can say so, but the question is, do I have substance? Do I have anything to back up my words? That's the question. He can say, I will not come here waste my time on what David Umahi thinks. Is that? That it will be speculative. All right. I've spoken now and I've tied every of my submissions to the law and to the fact. All right. Let him tie his to something. Maybe you can engage if he does that.
Okay. Let's also now look at the how strong. There's the talk about individual candidacy and all of that. With everything that you have said, does it mean, or do you feel that it just means individual candidacy cannot work? Looking at the climate that Nigeria operates in
currently, that ideal, in jurisprudence, part 5 in universities, cities rather, when studying law, there is a course called, I think it's jurisprudence JIL 501 or something. There is a topic under jurisprudence. Jurisprudence, by the way, is how law evolves. Okay. So there is a topic there we call, it's a funny name, what the law is versus what the law ought to be. All right. Individual candidacy is ideal, but it's unrealistic. Do you know how much someone spends? They are allowed funds. There are limits to spend during during campaigning.
That's right.
Think about having persons spending that. It will become survival of the fittest in terms of who has more financial war chest. If that happens, we may be opening doors for serious corruption crimes.
So it's not entirely about these provisions of the Constitution. I mean, the fact that, according to what you've said, it's about parties that votes belong to as against individuals, even though you've also cited instances where that happened.
Come again with the question, please.
You're saying that individual candidacy would not work based on what the law has said in terms of votes belonging to parties, because parties actually sponsor individuals to get to the positions of power.
No. Why I'm thinking that may not work? It will work really. There's no reason why it should not work. You know, but of course the law, if it is enacted, will not come out as KAYODE Aderemi and contest under your name. All right. Okay. But think about how will the ballot paper look like? So we start having my face, for example, and my name versus PDP umbrella. It's going to be somehow really. You begin to hear things like, this picture not clear enough. What if Benga looks like me and is contesting too? It's going to be somehow. I mean,
maybe someone could just say this person is not fine enough, and so I'm not voting for him.
I remember when I was contesting. You know, I branded a minibus, and my don't see you. At times I'll be driving around these shanties. You know, I went around Alagba, but I went around the 10 wards in Aldeda. You know, and at times I'll be driving. What I'll be hearing, just in a light note, you know, will be that this guy fine, sha. And I'll tell my campaign team, like, guys, what you want is vote. It's not a beauty or handsomeness pageant, really. You know. So, but like I said, that's on a light note. But that would be pretty difficult. Take for example, APC in 2019 sold their governorship form for, I think, 22 million.
Yes.
22 whooping million. All right. So, of course, that has cut the class of who can contest. Where we get that money from, for example? Well, where you get that from? That's like a lifetime savings, really. So, in reality, that would have, I think it will have more disadvantage than advantage. I think so, really. It's ideal, but maybe when things are more transparent. For example, a boy can become a millionaire under 1 week in Nigeria, and nobody asks questions. It's possible. You can't do that in some countries. So in some countries, you can try individual candidacy. But here, you know, people will just, in Abeokuta, they have arrested couples that allegedly beheaded somebody to make money. They've arrested some young guys that beheaded one girl, Sophia, allegedly, like that. Why? All because of money. So if that happens, we may be opening floodgates for more crimes.
Okay, let us know your thoughts, all your questions, any questions you have for Barrister KAYODE Aderemi, who's our guest this morning, as we look at the sacking of Governor UMAHI of Ebonyi State and what this means in light of, you know, defection from one party to another. We have WhatsApp 0817-555-1067. We also have Twitter. We're live on Twitter Space, I believe.
That's right.
Okay, at Splash FM 1067. The hashtag to use as you tweet at us is Panorama. And on Facebook, it's Splash FM 106.7. We're live streaming, so click on that video and drop a comment in the comment section below it. Now, for a long time, Nigerians have been asking for or praying that we would have sanity when it comes to cross-carpeting and defecting, because you see it happen all too frequently, especially with election season drawing close. Not only have we seen Governor UMAHI recently, or even Governor Ayade, there's also Governor Bello Matawali of Zamfara State. And in fact, the politics in Zamfara is so tricky that allegedly not only did he defect, but so did all the state assembly, you know, members do. And allegedly pressure was put on the deputy speaker to defect, and when he didn't, they found a way to kick him out of that position. Now, so with all these happenings that we've seen, we even had during the former assembly, National Assembly, we had Senate presidents at the time, Bukola Saraki as well, defect. With all these intrigues, Nigerians have said, okay, we need a way to stop defection. But if it's so clear, as you have put it, with those 6 points you marshaled, if it's so clear that the votes belong to the party and not the individual, why have political parties who have been on the receiving end of these defections, in this case usually the PDP, why have they not taken this up before now? Why has no one done anything? Why has it gone on for so long and, just sort of become normalized if it's really this evident?
There's always a first time, Lola, and this is the first in this case. That's my simple answer to that.
You don't think, it sounds almost as though you are sure, confident that the ruling will favor the PDP in this instance?
No, I've not seen what the PDP filed. Like I said, if I were in their legal team, these are the things I would suggest to them. And they can even have a right to amend in case they're listening to me now. In fact, there was a time I was on this, I think it was this station, and after I left, a member of a political party called me and said, thank you. And I didn't even know him. So I called back and said, who are you? He told me who he was. And he said, we have a case in court. We're almost filing. But I listened to you on Splash FM. I will call my lawyer and we'll amend. The person told me that. So it's a free one for them, really. But if I were in a legal team, these are the things I would bring forward. It's difficult to fault system.
It's possible that they may lose the case not because of the strength of the argument, but based on the technicality. Anyway, the law can be funny that way.
Yeah, it can,
All right, well, I believe we should start getting to the phone lines. I'm sure you have comments, contributions, as well as questions you'd like to ask Barrister Aderemi. The numbers to call are 0705 050 1067, 0704 044 1067.
Good morning to you. What's your name?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Yeah, my name is Folarin Golan from Shagawile.
Thanks for calling us.
Yeah, I greet my wonderful guest too. Good delivery. He has really, done well, in delivery of those laws, I really digested it very well. But I have some questions. I don't know if you can be able to help me to figure it out. The fact remains that the number one question is this. Like he said, that law or soever, I think it's 100% favor of party. Mostly, the candidature will not be, having a kind of feel on that bill or law, whatever they call it. You understand? But the fact remains that, when you want to make a vote,
Hello?
Is in between the party and the candidature. Because sometimes, like he said, mostly too, there is this case whereby the candidature will carry majority voters. You understand? Maybe he has much fun or whatever they call them. You understand? And when he gets to that party, even the party will be begging him to come to their party. You understand? Because they know he has whatever they have. Whatever it takes to win the election. But in this case now, it's just absolutely for the party. The law. Both cases, I think they should. You always, look at the way something is going to fit the both sides. Like now, maybe if a particular candidature can be able to meet up so points or so votes, you understand? It can have access to that vote too. You understand now? Together with the party, we shouldn't be outrightly the party.
Thank you very much, Larry, for talking to us. We can take more calls. 0817 444 1067. We'll have another caller now. Good morning. What's your name? Turn off your radio.
Hello.
Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Okay, if you are hearing me, my name is Johnson Olufatoki. I'm calling from Abeokuta.
All right, please go on.
The barrister has done justice for this discussion. With the provision of the law, it's centered on the fact that if there is no crisis in the political party and the elected officials move to another party, it is illegal. So the point is, at the point UMAHI moved to APC, there wasn't any crisis in PDP. After said that, there's need for discipline. There's need for, politics is evolving. We are moving forward, but in the snail approach, in snail system, my prayer is that this case should be a test case and should be a lesson to others. We must leave that position, not because of anything, but for politics in Nigeria to progress, for people to be disciplined, and for Nigerians to have dividends of democracy that is required. That's my contribution. Good morning.
Thank you very much, Honorable Johnson Olufatoki. I should also reference the fact that, I understand that Dave UMAHI is on everyone's lips, but we should let you know that there were 20 lawmakers that were also sacked, from Cross River State for defecting to the All Progressives Congress as well. And opinions also exist that
And the governor of Cross River State too also has a pending court case. I believe it will be decided this Friday.
tomorrow, but today's 23rd. Yes, this Friday. Yes, it's going to be 25th. That's the decision of the court or the ruling.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. What's your name?
Hello?
Good morning. We can hear you. What's your name?
Hello?
All right, please do call us again. We apologize for that one. Let's hear from this person instead. Good morning to you. What's your name? Okay, we missed that to call us again. Good morning.
Hello?
Good morning to you.
Hello?
We can hear you. Good morning.
Hello?
Oh.
All right, please stay on the line. Let's see if we can establish connection.
Good morning. What's your name?
Yeah, Uche from Abeokuta.
Uche, thanks for calling us. Go on, please.
Okay. You cannot run that to pay for. Even I cannot run PDP to pay APC because they are that they said in APC come back to APC and they are just forgiving. Now they want the mandate and that PDP, then they want to go to APC and APC so that this will be forgiven. It doesn't work that way. They were the one that first started with chanting. It's not that he's never up with chanting. First of all, that is not known as the movement because they want to be seen in Nigerian politics. Secondly, we don't from PDP to APC because they want to see the men in politics forever. And they will not be seen. It doesn't work that way. You cannot be that for. This is a vendetta is talking about. Time has come. If you face it clearly, think you have a nice day.
Thank you very much, Uche. I was being careful not to disconnect the call, but then thank you for joining us. Good morning. What's your name?
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Tim.
From
Thanks for calling us. Go on.
Yes, good morning, Barrister Aderemi. God bless you. I quite appreciate your submissions, and I've also always been of the opinion that since the said there is no individual candidate in Nigeria, the party should own the vote. Now, I would like to ask, just for clarification purpose, I think it's in Bayelsa, David Leon. Is it Bayelsa or where? David Leon, when he was already reacting for the handing over for the swearing in, the court sacked him almost immediately, and the PDP candidate took over. What was the basis for this, and why is it not that the party, since the APC had that vote in that election, why was the PDP candidate asked to take over? Why wasn't there a provision that, okay, maybe the APC should conduct a new primary, or if it has been confirmed that the primary, someone else won the primary election, why not that person taking over instead of the PDP candidate? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tajiri, for talking to us. Perhaps we should allow Barrister Aderemi to react to the calls we've had so far and the last question that we just had from Tajiri.
Well, all the calls but one were just comments. I mean, just comments, and I appreciate them all. Only one question as far as my records are concerned, and that's from Tajiri from Magbo. The difference is that David Leon's case was not defection. It was a case of lacking the requirements of the Constitution to contest. These are two different things. All right. So in that case, there's something we call issues for determination. For every case you bring to the court, there are issues you bring forward to the court to determine, to know whether exactly is right or wrong. So in this case, what was before the court to determine was not on, defection or the likes. What was before the court was that, did APC, provide qualified candidates? That was a question. Whereas, in this case we are discussing now, Governor David UMAHI, the issue for determination was whether after vacating your party, which brought you to service. I like to call it service, not power.
Okay.
That you will not be drunk. After vacating that, can you still be validly recognized as governor? So there are two issues for determination. So in that case, while in that Bayelsa case, everything that APC did, what was wrong was APC in that case. But in this case, what is wrong is defection. There are two different things.
Okay, let's get back to the calls. We'll get to Twitter very shortly and WhatsApp as well as other social media platforms. Keep the calls coming through in the comments as well. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning, Gwenga. Good morning, Lola.
Good morning.
Barrister Aderemi, good morning.
Good morning.
I put it to you, Barrister. If David UMAHI were to employ you today to defend him, all these 6+ reasons that you have given, I can bet you you have a way of overturning it. The law profession is one profession I so much respect and I fear at the same time. And I believe that most of the judgments we have are based on the interpretation given by individuals, not necessarily by the law. Because you see a case being tendered in court, a lawyer, a senior advocate will argue for using the same constitution, and another senior advocate will argue against that same section. It now depends on the interpretation given by the man who is called the judge. And today, if you have a very strong lawyer that will defend David Umahi, I wouldn't be surprised if that judgment is overturned and they will use it as precedent. Good morning.
Thank you so much, Abayami, for talking to us. Let's listen to the lawyer of Dave Umahi, as well as the lawyers for the PDP, the plaintiff, as well as the defendants, when it comes to the sacking of the 20 lawmakers in Cross River State. And we'll get back to the calls as well as the comments. Stay with us.
Under Section 25A of the Court of Appeal Act, to appeal to the Court of Appeal. 90 days. And this being a final judgment under Section 150 and Section 151 of the Constitution, we don't need the leave of the court to appeal. It's an appeal as of right.
This is another major decision upholding our constitutional provisions. The time for, resorting to the rule of law should now actually be welcomed.
Splash FM 106.7.
That appeal have been entered, and we tendered from the bar the certified true copy of the process issued by the court registrar showing that appeal have been entered and appeal numbers therein indicated. So now the war and the fights and the prosecution of the matter is now in Court of Appeal. And so the motion for stay of execution filed here have been withdrawn and terminated.
All right, you heard the different lawyers in that regard. The first person you heard, that's Mike Ozekome, is the lawyer that is, supposed to represent the 20 lawmakers who defected from the People's Democratic Party in Cross River State to the All Progressives Congress. And the second person you heard, we're talking about Emmanuel. Let me get his name now. His first name is Emmanuel, and he's the one that is the lawyer that is representing the PDP in that case. And the final person you heard is the lawyer representing Dave Umahi in the case that was delivered by Justice Inyang Eko. All right, we'll get back to the course and we'll get to the comments very shortly as well. Good morning. What's your name? Hello? Okay, you might have to call us again because we cannot hear anything at all. Do we have comments on Twitter that we should get to our WhatsApp?
That's right, we do. But let's take this call.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Oladele calling from Abeokuta.
Thanks for calling us, Oladele. Go on, please.
Yes, in the case of UMAHI, what follows? Will the court now pick the winner of the governor of that state now? Or they will go for another election? Those are the things I'm not clear about. Then, the other question I want to ask is this. Are we actually developing our constitution by these cases, or we are going to the end of another republic? Thank you, the barrister. I respect you.
Thank you very much, Oladele. He's asked an interesting question. I mean, what happens now that the court has delivered judgment in that regard?
So we have two questions so far. Or one comment warranting response, rather, not a question from Mr. Bayomi. And then a question from Mr. Oladele. For Mr. Oladele, what happens? Well, it's simple. What happens, in fact, if you read the judgment, it's clear as to what will happen. The court is saying that, look, Mr. David Umahi, or Governor David Umahi, you were in this bus called PDP when you moved in, all right? APC lost during that election. So APC is not even in the picture at all. So move it out. So if you move all parties out, the only party standing or boss in co-standing is the PDP. Since we have decided to allies and take a trek to join another boss like that, let somebody else
occupy the boss.
Exactly. So the law is that PDP should field someone, do some by-elections and bring in someone to sit in that seat. That's what that is. So, Mr. Bayomi, if David Umahi engages me today,
you can find the counter arguments that will nullify what you've already.
That's why law practice is called advocacy.
But then doesn't that go against? I mean, you always say the law is clear on this, the law is clear on this. Isn't that against that? Because obviously, I mean, clearly the law is not clear. It can be wielded by opposing parties.
I tell you this: the first time I had my shot at giving input into a law to be made was at Niger State. I was serving then, so I was privileged to be called upon. Maybe because they had seen how I talked and all that, you know. They called on me to give some suggestions, and I made sure I said I had a lot to say. But I said only one thing. I said, please, this law you are making. Then it had to do with that was when Boko Haram was really rising. That was in 2010. You know, I told them, I said, please, these laws you have made, can you put why you make those laws inside those laws? It helps. If, for example, the law has said parties should conduct election, like in section 221 of the Constitution, parties are the ones to conduct elections. To fund elections, and parties should canvass for votes because parties own the vote. Imagine putting that because that would have arrested a lot of issues. So that's one of the reasons I contested to be a lawmaker anyway. And judges do is trying to get Lola, think about this, into the mind of 26 guys that sat down in House of Assembly to make laws. They don't tell us why they make those laws, you know. So what we do most times is we try to get in their minds. We call it canons of interpretation. We have the literal rule, golden rule, mischief rule, a lot of things like that. So we try to look at what they were thinking when they made that law, and that would be a difficult thing. We are not Arino Road days. So the best you can do is just try to look at it from all angles: the aerial view, side view, cross-section view, you know, down view, below view, and see what they were trying to say by making that law. So it depends. And like Lola, it's like you go, you know, practically threw a jab at me there. Well, let me give you this. It's like Ilugongo, you know, finish that way. She's
not good.
Lola does not go always.
I'm the wrongest person.
Don't take out to that angle.
Oh, God, you say anything. And you look me. But it's the same gongo drum. You know, it has two faces, all right? So Lola could see this my palm is dark and it's bright. So if Benga says Kayode's palm is bright, would it be lying? No. If Lola says Kayode's palm is black or dark, would it be lying? No. It depends on the perspective you're saying from. So once you sit in a case, you try to sit, of course, from a perspective and try to see, you know, impute meanings into what laws.
I mean, please grant us 5 more minutes. Some of the comments on social media are questions addressed to you.
Absolutely.
So we're going to break now. When we come back, we'll finish with this conversation. Stay with us. We'll be back.
We're not going to cuss at you. We're not going to yell at you.
We're just going to give you the best of information and entertainment that everyone can agree on.
Splash FM
106.7.
bí a bá ń fọgbọ́n ṣe é dandan ká gbé ìgbésẹ̀ pẹ̀lú rẹ̀. ìgbésẹ̀ ọ̀hún rèé tí iléeṣẹ́ àgbàjọ homes and property ní ká gbé gẹ́gẹ́ bí ọlọ́gbọ́n torí pé a ò gbọ́dọ̀ sí kọ́kọ́rọ́ kù. ọ̀yá dam pressure estate 200,000 ní tẹ́lẹ̀ báyìí 100,000 lẹ́sàn. Gusi estate òṣìẹ̀lẹ̀ àti randa high level phase 2 kọ́pàpẹ́ àti sódẹ̀kẹ́ tuntun phase 2 600,000 ní tẹ́lẹ̀ báyìí 300,000 lẹ́sàn. ilẹ̀ ń bẹ ní ìdíòrì blessed city garden 2.4 million naira ní tẹ́lẹ̀ báyìí 1.2 million lẹ́sàn. onígangan 1 million naira ní lọ́lọ́ báyìí 500,000 ní gbẹ́tàn rẹ̀. ilẹ̀ oko mo lọ́gẹ̀dẹ̀ orílẹ̀ lógún ọlọ́run dá 25,000 ní plọ̀tì báyìí. ilẹ̀ àgbẹ̀ kọ́bápẹ́ alábàtà ọ̀pẹ́jì 30,000 per plot. bẹ́ẹ̀ bára plọ̀tì mẹ́ta ìdajì lẹ́gbàsí ó sì jẹ́ éka lẹ́ra ẹ̀ ó gbòdìdì kan sí 39 NT road ọgbẹ̀ Abeokuta 07044648338 07044648338 gbé ìgbésẹ̀ lónìí àwọn ètò kọ́kọ́rọ́ kù. ọjọ́ kọkànlélọ́gbọ̀n oṣù tá a wà yìí láǹfààní yóò pín.
Honey, must you go?
Babe, you know I must. Besides, you can always video call me.
Hey, what if your battery runs out?
I've got my power bank.
Hey, and when your power bank runs out?
Babe, I've got my laptop.
Okay, wait. What if your data runs out?
Babe, you know we never run out of data.
Never run out of data with Airtel Home Broadband Unlimited Ultra plans. Enjoy unlimited data with no speed cap plus extra data daily, so you never have to worry about running out. Visit www.airtel.com.ng/HBB to get started.
Babe, but I just left the house.
Yes, honey. It's video calling all the way.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Bí a bá ṣe tán ìgbésẹ̀ lókù torí pé a kì í kálàṣe kò pé iṣẹ́ o àfi aláṣẹ tán lórí ìgbàgbọ́ tẹ́ni sí iléeṣẹ́ aláṣẹrí Classy Home and Property Limited wọ́n ṣe ní ilẹ̀ tí wọ́n ti wá ìrọ̀rùn báyìí fún mùtúmùwà kọ́bapẹ́ town randa òṣèlè àti ọ̀yọ́ dam 100,000 ní báyìí òṣèlè gúúsì estate phase 1 sábòṣèlè kẹtìtún randa island phase 1 300,000 ní lájà àbálẹ̀ ilẹ̀ sí ibẹ̀ kákàkiri Abẹ́òkúta bẹ́ẹ̀ sì ni ilé oko wọn kọ́bapẹ́ òṣèlè alábàtà mọlọ́gẹ̀dẹ̀ 50,000 ní plọ̀tì kan bẹ́ẹ̀ bára plọ̀tì mẹ́ta ẹgbà ìdajì sí bó sì jẹ́ éèkà lẹ́ra odidi kan lẹ́gbà sí 4 Mochud Abiola Way nílé ogoro Daily Express furniture gan-an náà wà l'Abeokuta 08033086557 08033086557 bẹ́ẹ̀ ṣe ń gbé ìgbésẹ̀ dandan ni kẹ́ ẹ tẹ̀síwájú lórí àwọn àfojúsùn yín. ọjọ́ 21 oṣù tá a wà yìí láǹfààní yóò pin.
Hello, Chooks. Biko, wetara new laptop, 2 boxes, rechargeable fan, 3.
Your call credit has been exhausted.
Yeah, Ebuka, Biko, load 1,000 naira Airtel for this phone now. Ebuka, I send you 1,000 naira. You go load 8,000 naira. Be this boy in a power there.
Oga, no. As they make plenty call. Now why use Ovajara load the card?
Bam! Get 8 times your recharge plus double data on Ovajara. You also get 1,000 naira bonus on every new SIM activation. Dial *544# from an existing SIM to obtain.
Oh yeah, take. Go buy food for Mama Chi, please. Make sure add Ovajara.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Oṣù àpọ́nlé wọlé dé wẹ́rẹ́. Oṣù ìkéhùn ìkẹ́. Ramadan IAS Unique Homes and Property pẹ̀lú ìfọwọ́sowọ́pọ̀ ní electronics ló gbé àǹfààní Ramadan special promo yìí kalẹ̀. Àǹfààní eléyìí tó kọjá bẹ́ẹ̀. Gbogbo ẹni tó bá ralẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ yìí nílé iṣẹ́ IAS ló máa gba ẹ̀bùn tó jọjú. Bẹ́ẹ̀ bá láǹfààní àti ra IAS garden setting táǹtà ní $1 million. Tó sanwó ẹ̀tàn lẹ́ẹ̀kan náà. Láìsí lọ kábọ̀. Àwọn ẹ̀bùn tó máa gbà ní òní electronics lójú ẹsẹ̀ nìyí. 32 inches LED television, home theatre system àti washing machine ládùndẹ̀. bẹ́ẹ̀ bá ti ń ra ilẹ̀ wa o ní 200,000 300,000 750,000 $1 million 3.5 million naira lójú ẹsẹ̀ lè máa gba ẹ̀bùn tó jọjú. eléyìí kì í ṣe ìyíje yìí ò jẹ́ o torí kò tó ralẹ̀ rárá ló ti mọ ẹ̀bùn ńlá tó máa gbà. ìwọ náà tètè kàn sí wọn nílé iṣẹ́ IAS tó bá súnmọ́ jùlọ. pé 09033773189. má gbàgbé o olóríire mẹ́ta ló máa fi lu Dubai ṣèfàjẹ́. rántí gba tíkẹ́ẹ̀tì tiẹ̀ náà.
March 31st làǹfààní máa wá sópin.
We're not gonna cuss at you. We're not gonna yell at you.
We're just gonna give you the best of information and entertainment that everyone can agree on.
Splash FM 106.7.
Panorama.
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 Panorama. Panorama.
Panorama on Splash 106.7 FM.
A wonderful morning starts with.
Right, thank you so much for staying with us. Splash 106.7, the Integrity Station. This is Panorama. We're looking at defections from one party, political party that is, to another, and the consequence that has ensued as a result of, in manner of sacking of lawmakers in Cross River State, as well as former governor of Ebonyi State, Dave UMAHI, in that regard. Let's get to Twitter comments, the tweets that we have so far. We have this from Sheon Falola, who says, God bless Panorama. Today's discussion is very interesting. In fact, a prolific barrister took us back to class. What an eloquent summation. Anyway, that supposed former governor should stop playing a victim card. The position of the those examples. Now that it is established that votes belong to the party and not individuals, the question is this enough ground to sack a governor? I think that's as explanatory as the answer should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
The answer is in the question.
Okay. All right. Omondo says UMAHI erred, and 2 more tweets. Personally, I have a lot of respect for lawyers and one learned mind. In fact, listening to Barrister Aderemi is like you are under the teaching of a professor. Once again, God bless Panorama and Splash from. Finally, Ajadi Nuruddin says, why can't there be a law that states that the political office holder should not spend less than 4 years before defecting?
We should spend not less than 4 years before
Defecting.
defecting.
Yes, that's what's there.
Okay, let me see if I can take the questions on WhatsApp so you just note them and answer them as briefly as you can. Comrade Rotimi from Adigbe says, good morning. At times we vote for individuals not because of party. We might not like a party, but just because of a particular candidate, we may be compelled to vote for a party. How do we explain this? So he's asking that we don't discount those who vote for the individual and not the party. I'm just going to read your questions. Later we'll get to the actual comments so we can let Barrister Aderemi go. This one is from Akinwale from Camp, and he says in addendum to the question about what happens after the judgment, if PDP conducted a primary and brings in another person to seat, will the person be completing the tenure of UMAHI, starting a new tenure as it is the case when court sends out a sitting governor, e.g. Osun Ekiti and the likes? That's question number 2. This one says, good morning, well done to our learned colleague in the studio. Concerning the ruling on defection, what about the clause that says if there are factions within the party? This is from Adigbeson from Adeon, I think. Olajo also says you haven't answered the second question of Mr. Oladeinde. That is, this judgment by the court, is it moving our democracy forward or to the end of the republic? Those are the questions we have so far. Do we have questions on Facebook? Okay, I can see Afonjade Damola Daniel who says,
to the question,
is the constitution against defection from one party to another? Well, I can sort of answer this one. Honorable Fatoki already mentioned it, but I think the constitution has something on defection for members of the Senate or the House of Representatives. I'll read out that section, but let's Barrister Aderemi answer the ones posed so far.
All right. Yes, I'll
Quickly,
just yes, I'll be more than quickly. In fact, I'll try to be more than quickly. Yeah. I could not pick some of the names. Someone was asking that is this judgment helping the democracy? I'll say yes. Democracy is in a way, democracy is many things. One of the many things include that being able to ask questions. Yes. We should be able to ask those elected questions, that they're asking questions that is it right to leave a party that brought you in. So yes, it's helping democracy. 2, Adegbeson, what is the law on defection? The law on defection is that until there is a crisis at the national level of a party, you can't defect. So it's like, the root has been destroyed. That's the national, formation of the party.
Mm-hmm.
Then, of course, it's like cutting a tree. Birds that perch on a tree can fly and live.
Right.
All right. So that's what the law says on that. I think Honorable Fatiki mentioned that. From camp, with the new PDP continue the tenure of UMAHI remaining? No. What would happen? The court would have to, or recourse would have to be made as to what the law provides. When I say the law, not constitution, as to the tenure of a governor. All right. So if he's brought in, he becomes a new governor. And what is the tenure of a new governor? That's 4 years. So it will be 4 years, not 1 year remaining or whatever is remaining, right? So that's what the law says on that. Rotimi, some votes for candidates. I agree. Ajadi, why can't the law? I didn't get that question really. So I think I've tried to touch.
All right, everyone. Much appreciation goes to Barrister Kayode Aderemi, who has been fantastic in his analysis as usual. Thank you for joining us on Panorama this morning.
Thank you, Lola.
All right, we'll take a short break and we'll switch to the second segment of this from the pages. Stay here. Panorama.
Panorama. Panorama. Panorama. Panorama.
Panorama on Splash 106.7 FM. All right, thank you so much for staying with us. It's time to take you through the second segment of this. We see mammoth number of comments that we have on Facebook, on WhatsApp, as well as Twitter, but we need to move on to the second segment of this, but we appreciate that
we
you sent all
appreciate
of
them.
those.
We'll see if we can squeeze them in towards the end of the program.
All right. I have with me here Vanguard newspaper.
I have Nigerian Tribune.
All right, on the front page of Vanguard, the big story is there's no pact to cede presidency to Southwest. APC bigwigs insist. A number of riders, multiple of them. First one says stakeholders, fourth zoning formula, 2 days to convention. Second rider, party rakes in over 700 million naira from nomination forms. The third rider, opposition mount against Omishore in Southwest. Bochi stakeholders kick. The fourth rider, don't hand over parties to strangers. Mustafa says. Fifth rider, Yahaya Bello's camp upbeat. And the final rider is this, fresh hollows for Abdullahi Adamu as defunct legacy parties kick. We have this as well. Sacked 20 Cross River lawmakers. Please mount heavy security at Assembly Complex. You find that on page 12. Destabilization. Nigerians not ready for another PDP misrule. This is coming from the presidency. You find that on page 4. FG reviews auto policy as Oshimbaju inaugurates Toyota service facility. You find that on page 4. How police authority shielded Abba Kyari since 2008. NHRC boss reveals. You find that on page 9. 40% Nigerians below poverty line. Well, sounds like I've heard this before, but then you find that story on page 4, and that's according to the World Bank. Bamishe, Lagos government arraigns BRT driver for alleged rape, murder. You find that on page 3. Vandalism, FG probes oil companies' activities. You find that one on page 4. Anambra's finances. I inherited 100 billion naira debts. That's coming from the new governor of Anambra State, Soludo. Buhari impressed with Dangote's $2.5 billion fertilizer plant. You find that on page 19. Those are the stories you find on the front page of Vanguard newspaper.
From the front page of Nigerian Tribune, APC convention, Southern delegates set to stop Adamu as Southwest governors tighten noose around Buhari's candidates. Intense battle for youth leader as Northern supporters of Israel Dada flex muzzles. At inauguration of Dangote's 2.5 billion naira fertilizer plant, Buhari says Nigeria's dependence on imported products to stop soon as he directs speedy completion of Lekki Deep Seaport, railway link to harbour, inaugurates Lagos Airport terminal building. FAC shares 590.546 billion naira revenue to federal government, states and local governments. I hope the local governments will get the allocation. OAUVC, Akeredolu students condemn protesters. Oyetola calls for peace. On elections, NYSC reviews its MOU with INEC on core members' safety. Soludo says, I met 300 million naira in Anambra Treasury. Mother sets 10-year-old daughter ablaze in Ogun. Amid the internal crisis, OUAPC inaugurates State Exco's 32 local government chairmen. NBA to study Justice Anyadike's judgment nullifying Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. That was our discussion for yesterday. Defection, Cross River governor to no fate come Friday. A security men barricade Assembly Complex. House of Reps probes $500 million Abuja Kaduna rail line perimeter fencing. Southwest PDP insists the South should produce the next president. Let's begin with our analysis. We have joining us Kola Abiola. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
That's right.
What's our first pick?
Okay, let's take a stop at Anambra State this morning, and this is in connection with the newly inaugurated governor of the state, Charles Chukwuma Soludo, who's the former governor of CBN, by the way. And he's talked about how he inherited 100 billion naira debts. I could pick from what Lola read that he made 300 million naira in the state coffers. And we'll see this happen over time.
Despite having been given about 75 billion naira from his predecessor, that's Peter Obi, allegedly.
Right, and we see this happening time and again where a newly inaugurated official, the EXCO, could be the president, could be a governor, and say, come in and then I'm meeting bigger amounts in the state coffers. I mean, can these be guarded against?
As long as there is no deterrent, this will continue to happen. A lot of governors have come and have gone, and they have done this kind of things, that the successor will come and say, this is what is happening. But having spent 4 years or 8 years, and the successor sees what happens to his predecessor, getting a relief either by changing from one party to another or by belonging to one group or the other, and the case will go on for 2-3 years. Probably when they take him to court and grant him bail, the case will go on for 3-4 years and nothing will come out of it. So it's like you are encouraging or you are empowering the new government or the new person that comes into government. You also have access to this vault. All you need to do is play by the rules. But when there has been a serious deterrent, that people have actually been punished, properties and looted funds being recovered, returned back to the coffers of those states, I think anybody going into that office will know that this is what awaits me too. But there seems to be nothing. It's just the game for the boys. Once you get in, settle all the what do you call it? The godfathers and everybody, your party, fund your party, and you're a good boy. And nothing comes. The masses are not taking into consideration with this, because if you actually take in the poor people, imagine if 75 billion was spent in a state, what would that one do? Even only health sector or education sector, people will benefit. So as long as there is no stiff punishment, people will continue to do this. Take China, for example. Though I'm not advocating for death sentence, but everybody knows that corruption is death. So you want to think twice before you go soil your hand. So if we have very stiff punishment here, people think twice before they go into government or public office, and when they get there, they will want to come out and not want to end their life in prison.
Right. This may need to be examined on a case-by-case basis, but should we believe every case of when an incumbent comes in and he says his predecessor left the coffers empty, or is it just them laying the groundwork so that they can have a handy excuse if, they're accused maybe of not spending enough money on public infrastructure and the like?
Let's take Anambra State, for example. Obi said he left 75 billion. Obiano was still alive while he was in government for 8 years to have time to have refuted that, no, I didn't mean 75 billion and co. And so if we go back to what we said, if there has been deterrent, if Obi had lied and Obiano had come out to say, no, this is what is it. Not just auditing, forensic auditing will bring out all the details of how government money moved and co. And so if Obi had been found culpable and necessary action has been done, this person coming in and saying, I'm meeting 700 million too, there are records. Money can be traced from source to anywhere. So if all this has been happening, everybody knows that, yes, you might have immunity as a governor, but the day that you finish your term, the long arm of the law will catch up against you. And that's why a lot of people have advocated that the immunity should not be blanket. The immunity should not cover some sins, even as a sitting governor. Some countries that we copied our democracy from. All these kind of things are things that will make you lose the office. Once you have abused your power of office or you have abused the trust that the people have put into you. So if the immunity is not blanket, it's not total, and they know that they can be held responsible for the sins, so it will not even take 4 years, it will not even take 8 years before they can be punished for this. If these are in place, I think it will reduce what some people call executive rascality.
Okay, and now let's move over to what's going on within the PDP, as particularly in the Southwest, as leaders of the People's Democratic Party in the Southwest geopolitical zone on Tuesday at a zonal meeting in Ibadan insisted that the next president should come from the southern part of the country. Some of the leaders present at the meeting were former governors Olagunsoye Oyinlola and Olusegun Mimiko, Ayodele Fayose, former deputy governor of Ekiti State, Professor Olushola Eleka, party chieftains, Chief Olabode George, and Honorable Ladi Adibutu. Now, the PDP has been playing it safe or unwilling to commit to zoning so far. It's an all-comers affair, saying everyone has a constitutional right to purchase the forms, but analysts are predicting that this means the PDP is likely going to leave it open and not zone. Do you think the leaders have enough persuasion in them or perhaps a leverage to force the PDP to commit to zoning, which it has previously adhered to in the past?
You see, there have been the pro and the people against zoning for the merit and the demerit of whatever thing that they are putting forth. But for the kind of structure and multilingual country that we have, you kind of want to justify it. But for me, those people championing zoning and those ones that are saying they want to leave it for free, it would have been better if what is at the center of this their idea is Nigeria and Nigerians. But at the center of their idea is what comes to me. They are not actually thinking about Nigeria or Nigerians. So it's like they are all trying to protect their pot of soup. So if actually we are thinking of Nigeria, then we can now begin to look at what is fair, what is just. Then you say, okay, trying to move it around. But if at the center of it, either zoning or leaving it for free or whichever, Nigeria is not at the center of it. I think it is just meaningless. They are just waiting for who will protect their pot of soup and every other thing that they have done, and that they will still remain in the corridors of power.
All right. Well, we will have to open up the phone lines very shortly because we'd have to wrap up earlier than usual, and like we usually, and the time that we usually get to wrap up the conversation on Panorama. So please, you can get to call us. The numbers are 0817-444-1067, 0704-400-1067, or 0705-050-1067.
But we can take some more stories. NBA to study Justice Ayadike's judgment nullifying Section 84, subsection 12 of Electoral Act. That's on page 8. And I'm going to find the story now. It says the Nigerian Bar Association, NBA, on Tuesday disclosed that it would take steps to go through the judgment of Justice Evelyn Ayadike of UMAHI Division of the Federal High Court, which on 18th March 2022 nullified Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act. Justice Ayadike had, in the judgment, ordered the AGF, that's the Attorney General of the Federation, the sole defendants in the case, to delete the said Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act with immediate effect, an order which the NBA said the AGF has reportedly decided to comply with. Now, this was what we treated as our issue of the day yesterday, and interestingly, today we also discussed legal matters. Now, what's interesting about the saga of Section 84, subsection 12 of the Electoral Act is, I mean, it says that political appointees must resign before they vote as delegates or before they run for a position themselves. And the judge voided it because she said that there is already a section in the Constitution that pertains to that asks public servants, civil servants, to resign 30 days to the election. But from all the criticism or the debate about it that I've seen flying around from lawyers, it's been pretty much unanimous. All lawyers that have come around have pretty much said that it seemed like the whole business was shady. The judgment was shady. The process leading up to it was shady, such as the fact that stakeholders that should have been named in that suit were not, the INEC and the National Assembly, the speed at which the judgment was passed. And then even the judgment itself, because it is confusing a political appointee with a civil servant, whereas they are not the same thing. So it's a rare day where you see a judgment that would not polarize lawyers, but it seems like almost everyone is saying the same thing. And now the NBA too is like saying this is questionable. So we keep having these kind of rulings in the judiciary. How do we stem the tide of these rulings?
I think judiciary, in a way, have been trying their bit to want to claim their own space. Judges have been punished, judges have been removed, but because it's also an arm of government. One will be careful that it's not just a bandwagon effect that is going around and picking who and who is not supposed to be taught. But one of the things that you look at when you look at that judgment is, in the past 7 years, how many of those kind of judgment has the federal government, especially Malami, willing to execute almost immediately? The judgment came out on a weekend or so, and he already came on air and said they were going to fulfill this judgment. And I remember in the last 7 years, High Court, Appeal Court, and Supreme Court have given judgment against the federal government, and they are willing to contest or just close their eyes to it. And so when you see this kind of judgment and the rush at which it was done and which it wants to be executed, then you begin to think, because of their antecedent, that they have something to gain from it. And I think it is not. It is very commonsensical to know that there's a difference between public servants and political appointees. I'm not a lawyer. I cannot talk about the technicalities of those cases. But even as politicians to tell you, as a governor, I am not bound by the number of appointees that I can appoint. So if I know that a convention is coming in and all my appointees can vote, all I need to do is bring in 1,000 or 2,000 appointees. And the number of delegates coming from the party is already fixed. So everybody coming in to contest for one post or the other have a fixed delegate. And the governor have unlimited amount of delegate that they can bring. This has already given an undue advantage to the... and just imagine you are an appointee today, assuming we did our World Congress today, you are still an appointee, you voted. By next week that we want to do the local government Congress, if you have not done according to the governor's dictate and the governor removes you, then it means you can no longer continue for all those other conventions. But as a delegate, you have the right to go all through. So separating these two from each other, I think, will be in the best interest of the party. But the governors wanting to be the leader and the alpha and omega of the party, and I think for also the presidency that wants to be the leader and the alpha and omega of the party, will do anything to oppose this, because they still want to also be able to impose their preferred candidate on the party and on the people. So I think, unfortunately, we don't have enough time to be able to do all this thing, because whatever changes in the constitution again or in the guideline of INEC will probably affect INEC timetable. Because of this bill, they adjusted their timetable. So I think the federal government and their agencies should not just toy with this and put INEC preparation and plans into jeopardy and not turn 2023 into something else.
All right, well, let's take your calls. We only have a few more minutes. 081-755-1067, 0704 400-1067, 0817-444-1067, and 0705-050-1067. This comment from Akinwale from Camp says, isn't it funny that the PDP in the South is clamoring for zoning, yet their brothers in the Northern Hemisphere are purchasing presidential forms? Let them keep shouting zoning and not obtain form. Maybe the party will zone to a no candidate in the South. Also, I have not read in the papers the barbaric acts going on in OAU. I thought our academic environment should be a safe haven when it comes to politics like this. I'm ashamed for my dear state and next door neighboring town. They're supposed to be more civilized than this.
Hello, good morning. What's your name?
Good morning.
Abayami, thanks for calling us. Go on.
Good morning.
Sadiola, good morning, sir. Yes. Like what I told our resource person on issue of the day, I want to believe that majority of the problems we are having in this country, especially as it has to do with our constitution and the judiciary, are being perpetrated by the practitioners of that profession. Where somebody will argue for, another person will argue against on the same provisions of the constitution, and the judge will be forced or will have to decide on his own personal clarification or his own interpretation. Now, do not do this. You have to do this. The PDP will go to court and challenge it. The APC, where I'm driving at is this. The NBA that are saying they want to review the judgment of that judge. Is it not a member of NBA that defended APC in court? Is it not a member of PDP that was at the court premises? The same member of NBA. These are things that we need to look at. The NBA will have to sit down, including the judges, and decide for us which way to go. Not that on a particular case you have different judgments, you have different clarifications, you have different meanings, and you expect to follow and get this desired result. It's not going to work. They have to give us a template that will follow, and everybody, even unborn generation, will meet that template and will follow. Not that you interpret a particular section in A today and you give another interpretation to it tomorrow. Good morning.
Thank you, Abayomi. Good morning. We implore you to keep your comments as brief as you can manage to keep them, or really, rushing this morning to meet up with time, as we have less time than we usually would. Regarding Akinwale's comments, he was saying he doesn't know much about the OAU situation. I'm just going to quickly read some paragraphs of that story to enlighten you on what's going on there. So apparently, indigenes and traditionalists are protesting the appointment of the new Vice Chancellor of OAU, Professor A.S. Bamiri, because they say he's not an indigene of Ife. That's basically the summary of it. That's what's going on. That's what's causing all the rancor. They say that he's not an indigene of the state, and so they would rather have an indigene be the new vice chancellor of the state. More comments from WhatsApp. This one is from Olajuwel from camp, and he says PDP will be a miserable loser if they zone the presidency to the north. And Abiodun Surakat says if care is not taken, the new Electoral Act may not be put to use come 2023. 0817-555-1067, 0704-400-1067. This will be our final call on the show. Ooh, can we take it? All right, let's squeeze it in if we can manage to. Hello, good morning.
Can you hear us? Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Keep it brief. You have 30 seconds.
Good morning. Now, Apolabi is my name. I'm calling from Abeokuta.
30 seconds.
Yes, I want to say that when leaders are unserious, when leaders are shameless, the followers will also be shameless. What happened in AU is disgraceful to everyone. And I don't know when the appointment of VCs has become an indigenous affair, where some people will claim that it must be their indigents that will occupy such a very academic position.
We have to go.
We apologize. We sincerely do apologize.
We do apologize to everyone who sent in comments on our issue of the day. I am deeply regretful that we couldn't read your comments out loud. Next time we'll try and, fix things so that will not happen again. But thank you very much, Kola Abiola, for your time with us this morning.
Thank you very much.
Panorama will continue tomorrow from 8 o'clock. Be sure to join the duo of Benga and Odera. My name is Lola Meduteni.
And I should let you know that 3 p.m. today we'll have a pre-Ramadan lecture here on our studio. I mean, we're gearing up for the month of Ramadan. So join us from 3 o'clock till 5. Enjoy the rest of the day. I am Benga Fayo.
We educate.